Today I have a quick flip through of some new curriculum for us, and that new curriculum is Christian Light Education's Language Arts 2 and Reading 2, the first part. So I'll talk about how this is kind of set up into two parts. This is all together, but I want to get into kind of real quick why we're looking at new curriculum. So we're about halfway through our year now. We've started a little early, and we did that because with the military, you never know how things are going to be throughout the year, and we know we're moving next year, and it looks like we may end up just schooling year-round, at least for this year, because we're going to be moving in the fall next year, and it's going to be crazy. But anyway, so we're halfway through the year. We've been using the good and the beautiful for language arts and reading for all three of my kids. And while I like the program, I like that each day the lessons are different. It's kind of go at your own pace. There's a lot going on so that you're not going to get bored. Your student's not going to get bored. I feel like the program it's a spiral program, but it's too almost spiraled out, if that makes sense. For instance, you may talk about nouns in one lesson, and then you don't get back to that same subject for, it could be like 7, 8+ lessons. And right now, my third grader really, really, really needs to focus heavily on grammar, and it's just not in that curriculum that way. He's fine with reading. I don't have any problems with his reading level abilities and all of that. It's the grammar, sentence structure, all of that good stuff. And I just need more of a structured curriculum to make sure that he is where he needs to be. And so today I'm going to go over what I have picked up for him, and then I have more videos coming as to what we've picked up or changed for my other kiddos. And I kind of do this at the middle of our year. I usually will stop and look at what we're using and make sure that it still works. We're still using Singapore math for my kids, and that is working great. I'm probably going to add in some teaching textbooks as kind of a curriculum boost per se, or just for that added help. Singapore math is more of it's a mastery program. So if I can add in the teaching textbooks, he'll get extra practice on that. But anyway, that's a different video. We're going to go over this stuff today. So Christian Light Education is a very, I feel like the curriculum is a very, what is the word I'm looking for? Traditional. That's the word I'm looking for. A traditional type of approach to schooling. So these programs are not just used for homeschoolers, but in classrooms also. These are Christian-based programs, to let you know that ahead of time. And they are very affordable too, extremely affordable. So I will start first with the language arts. So the way that their programs work, you have a teacher's manual, which it comes spiral bound, and it's a very thick, this one's very thick. The covers are sturdy cardstock, and they're laminated, so that's nice. And the student portion comes in 10 light units. Now I only have the 5 because I bought kind of half the program for language arts and half the program for reading, just to make sure that this would work for us before I kind of splurged and bought everything. But the light units themselves, you can buy all 10 of them together or individually, but they are $3.50 a piece, and they're pretty decent size workbook. The teacher's manual, I cannot off the top of my head remember how much it cost, but it was not super expensive either. For an entire year's language arts program, it is extremely affordable. They have math programs, they have Bible, they have social studies. We're not doing anything with their programs other than language arts and reading for this point. So I will get into the teacher's guide first. So like I said, it's spiral bound, it's thick and sturdy. One thing I really like about this program is it goes very in depth in the beginning part of the teacher's manual about how to use the curriculum and all of that good stuff. So you have 10 light units. These things are called light units. So 10 for the entire program. For the second grade edition, like we said, this is Language Arts 2, there are 16 lessons per light unit. Now, I want to stop real quick and say, yes, my son is in 3rd grade, but like I said, he's behind in the grammar, so that is why we started in 2nd grade, because I wanted to fill any gaps he was missing. Then we'll move on to 3rd grade. So we will probably move through this quickly, a little more quickly than we would if it was, you know, if he was right on target. So we may do a couple lessons a day rather than just the one. It just kind of depends on his mood too, because language arts and reading, while he's okay doing those, it's not like he struggles big time. He still sometimes gets frustrated if it's just too much, and I don't want to overwhelm him. So you've got all of the table contents for all of the light units. Here it talks about an introduction to language arts. It explains the teacher's guide, phonics, objectives, board prep, review, study words, penmanship, from manuscript to cursive. Then it goes into information about the actual light units, scoring and grading, spelling test grading. We have a separate program for spelling, so we won't necessarily be doing the spelling test, but we will do the activities with the spelling words in them, because obviously that's not going to hurt anything. Suggested lesson plans, and then you get right into the lessons. So, Language Arts 201, Light Unit Overview, Creative Writing Lesson, Section 1. So here, Lesson 1 starts with language, a gift from God, a look at my light unit, vowels. So we're talking about vowels in this unit, objectives, class prep, optional class prep. That's all you need to do for the lesson. And then over here, you have the new stuff they're learning. It's kind of scripted, so it helps you to know what to say and how to teach it. I love that it will show you what the children, your students, whatever, are looking at in their light unit for whatever lesson they're on. So I don't have to like share the book or the light unit with my son. I can just focus on my book while he's looking in his book, and it just kind of works out a little bit better. And then we have, let's see, this is some more new stuff. Then there's phonics, going over vowels, penmanship, spelling. Like I said, it's showing you the activities that you do. And then it jumps into lesson 2. So that is how all of the lessons are laid out in this teacher's guide. Now, I will say that in this program, they do start writing cursive. We are using handwriting without tears, and that's what I'm going to stick with. It's working really well for all of my kids. And so we're not going to necessarily do the cursive part when it gets into it. We'll just skip that part. Like right here, it's penmanship, and they're doing little r and some review on other letters they've learned. And I'm sure as a homeschool parent, you've seen this, but like every handwriting program teaches how to make the letters differently. And so I want to make sure that we stick with one program and follow it. I don't want to jump around and them say, well, why are we writing it this way? We learned it this way. And so we're going to stick with handwriting without tears. It's a solid program. It works. We're good with it. So anyway, you get through all of the lessons. Like I said, there's 10 units, 16 lessons per unit. So obviously 160 lessons. So it's a little bit shorter than 180 days, which is always nice because, you know, as homeschool parents, we may not completely get in all those 180 days, depending on where you live and what the requirements are. But in the back, you have appendixes with different things. So Language Arts 100 Index. Phonics Rules for Language Arts 100 and 200. Language Arts 200 Scope and Sequence. Language Arts 200 Index. Penmanship, Study Words, Spelling Words, Teaching Creative Writing in 2nd grade, General Tips, Creative Writing Topics on Teaching Writing, Directions for Teaching Creative Writing Class, all sorts of good stuff. Sound and let me see if I can read this upside down, diacritical markings. And then you have alternate spelling tests back here, the spelling tests and the alternate tests. And then you have a manuscript and cursive alphabet, and then you have alternate tests for all of the 10 units. So that's all listed back here. So that is the teacher's guide. And here are what the light units look like. So like I said, it's a workbook, and it's not laminated or anything, but it's a thicker paper for the cover. So a little note to student and teachers before you start the actual lesson. So here you have, let me see, is this the right one? No, I always do that. Okay, so this is 201. So this is the very first one that you would use. There are 3 sections. Like I said, 16 lessons per book. There's a few notes to the teacher before you start. So section 1, talking about language and what language is. There's some study words to go over. Here we're talking about table of contents and how to use them. Vowels, vowel word penmanship, just writing the name. And then here's the spelling section, so you go over the words and then they write out the words. So that would be lesson 1. Lesson 2 is laid out the same way, they just may have different things that they go over throughout the lesson. In the middle of the book is the test. Now this doesn't mean that you do it in the middle of this book. This is for the very end of this book. So you administer the test after you finish this light unit. But in the back, you also have the quizzes. So there's 2 quizzes that you administer throughout this light unit as well. And it tells in the table of contents when you use those. Also tells in the teacher's guide. You also have extra activities in the back for different lessons. It'll tell you what lesson they go with. And then you have your spelling word bookmarks. So all of the light units look the same. By the time you get to 205, which is halfway through the year, you're going over, let's see, dividing words into syllables, writing good sentences, beginning a story, antonyms, writing addresses, abbreviations and addresses. And so I like that there is color, but it's not super colorful, but the way that it's written and laid out is very appealing, I think. I like that the lessons are short, because then that means that if he wanted to go on and do another lesson, he could. So that is what the language arts for grade 2 looks like. And most of them look the same too. You know, if I brought out language arts 1, it would look very similar, but I'll show you all that later. We're going to move on to learning to read 2, and this is book 1. So in the learning to read series for 2, there are 2 sections. There's the helping hands section, which comes with a teacher's guide, a reader, and 5 light units. Then the next set is happy hearts, and it also comes with a teacher's guide, a reader, and the 5 light units. So I'm going to open this up and show you how this is laid out. It is very similar to the language arts. So you have your table of contents, your introduction to reading 2, goals for reading, how to use the teacher's guide, how to use the light units, evaluating reading skills. So here's a reading rubric, teaching oral reading, teaching reading comprehension, scoring and grading, conducting oral reading class poetry sections, sounds and diacritical markings, and then right into the lesson. So here's the lesson 1 for reading 2. You have your objectives, optional class prep, and then kind of your script and questions to ask the student. Tells you what they're learning, what part of it is new, what's review. In reading, grade 2, you go through the first 2 lessons before you actually open up the reader. So the first lesson is over following directions. The second lesson is over answering questions. And then when you get to the third lesson, let me see if I can find where lesson 3 starts. Skipped it. Okay, lesson 3 is where you actually start reading the reader. But like I said, this is laid out exactly like the language arts teacher guide. And in the back you have the same appendixes, the study words, instant recall words, scripture verses for each story. So there are scriptures for each story, reading assessments, alternate light unit tests, all that good stuff. So that's the teacher guide. Then we have the light units. So this is 201, so this is the first one. Once again, a note to students and teachers. In these light units, they have these little symbols, and it'll tell you what the symbols mean, so it makes it a little bit quicker. When you're looking over the lesson, you start to realize what things the student will need teacher help with, what things they can complete on their own, all that good stuff. So once again, there's 16 lessons within the light unit. So here's lesson 1. He read the story, then he had some questions to answer about the story, and then we talked about what types of directions he would come across in this curriculum. We talked about direction words. We did some following the direction exercises, and then you would move on to lesson 2, and then lesson 3 gets into the reader. And so very similar to the language arts. And then in the back you have scoring for the light unit, and in the middle, if I can get to it, you have the quizzes 1 and 2, and then you have the test itself. So all of the light units are laid out like that. And then you have the reader, and I really like these readers. They are hardcover. They are a decent thickness, and they're just laid out really well. So you have the table of contents, and then you get into the first story, Nell's Dried Onions. The words are big. The study words are in bold, and they go over those in the light unit. There are pictures, not on every page, but I like how the pictures are kind of that old-timey look. I think there's enough to keep them interested. My son might look at this and be like, that's a lot of reading, but with the letters being bigger, obviously, it's not as much as they think it is. So, and then in the back, you have the study words list alphabetically, and then the study words for each story. So that is what Reading 2 and Language Arts 2 from Christian Light Education, what they look like. And I will let you guys know at the end of the year itself, once we finish out the year, how we've liked them and if we plan on continuing it or not. So if you have any questions whatsoever, put them down in the comments box below, and I will answer them as quickly as I can. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.